At this stage, I'd like to talk about our next presentation will be from JCB. David Banks is going to talk about, David Banks is General Manager for the electric vehicle project range. And he's going to talk about the range of electric vehicles that are currently available. Again, the future really in terms of not having polluting vehicles on construction sites. And I believe he's also going to touch on hydrogen as well. So at this stage, may I hand over to David to take the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and talk about our products. We're very, very proud of them, and continue to be very proud of being part of the decarbonisation and this discussion. I think it's very much up to us as manufacturers to deliver that, and so we're very, very happy to do that. So on behalf of myself and Paul, thank you for the sponsors and thank you for the opportunity. Next slide, please. You'll skip that one, Richard, if you want. That'd be fine.
Next slide, yeah.
Yeah, next slide, please. So the first thing that we want to talk about in terms of electric machines is we've got some areas here that we want to discuss, and it's sustainability, the concept, product and infrastructure. Next slide, please. And the next one, please. It's a series of countdown as well, I think. In terms of the UK Climate Change Acts and Targets, it's really important that we address to all of our customers and everybody that we talk about, why are we doing it? What's the reasoning behind it? Well, really simply, Climate Change Act was written into law in 2008 with a target of 80% by 2050. And it's really just to really touch on the fact that why it's so important. I think a lot of people have touched on that it was it was just a project that people are interested in. It wasn't supported by science. There's lots of arguments about the whys and wherefores. Now, I think what's really happening now is that it's obvious that we need to move towards zero carbon, and it's becoming very much a part of everybody's business, everybody's life, and it's not just ethical. It's commercial. It is so many different things now. So the real reason for us doing this is really the Climate Change Act as well, and looking at the UK Climate Change Acts and Targets. And really, climate crisis, technology developments, they're there now. We've worked on improving the technology with these products. We've spent huge amounts on R&D, time and effort in developing these products, these electric products. And the performance matches the diesel equivalents on every test run. And that's the feedback that we get from our customers. It's the testing that we've done in the field, and we can match the performance of diesel to really reduce that anxiety, because there is still anxiety, and it was alluded to in the previous call, around transitioning to a different type of power source. But actually, it's the same, and it's really about taking people from an early adoption phase into the journey with us and saying, well, actually, there shouldn't be any reason for concern now, and the technology just keeps getting better and better. And what this also electric provides is new working opportunities. It's really important that people understand that there's a wider range of applications and opportunities out there that you can operate in when you have electric products. The game has certainly changed since COVID, and what we're seeing is different types of projects, projects that require different type of equipment, and be that zero emissions, zero noise, clean air, and urbanized environments where health is more important to people, and people are now recognizing that. And rather than transition out diesel, I think it's becoming less of a case of us actually having to drag people into this technology, but people are slowly transitioning towards it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So let's have a look at the concept for a moment. Next slide, please. So what do we mean when we talk about opportunities? Well, before I do that, I want to talk about an argument that is not long ever stood up, really. And it was always the argument of the kilowatt hour versus a litre of diesel. What's really, really important is the difference between people that buy electric cars, which is generally an emotive process, and the difference of customers that buy products that are built on commerciality and viability. So it's really important that when we sell the value and the benefits, which is the language that we widely understand in industry, that it's built around opportunity. And it's built around built-up environments. It's built around environments where they're very congested to work in, that obviously a continual stream of emissions is clearly hazardous and dangerous to people's health. We're looking at low emission zones. You've seen recently Birmingham are doing exactly the same as what you've seen in London, and I very much expect this to be rolled out even further across the UK. So we're thinking about customers' health as well. So we're not forgetting the core reason and principles why we're doing it. But we're looking at working in confined environments. We're looking at working in schools and hospitals. You know, this is places where our children learn. This is places where people are ill and are treated. And these are the environments where companies are going to need to conform to zero emissions. They're going to need to conform to a quieter working environment. And they're going to need to conform to cleaner air. And these are really, really important things to consider. And this was never a problem 10 years ago. But if you look at a tender document now for a lot of contracts, a lot of companies, they are actually being asked, what is your carbon strategy? And what benefits do we have by dealing with you as a company? So working in schools, hospitals and built up environments, particularly low emission zones, is incredibly, incredibly important. And electric gives you this. The other benefit as well is what is called urbanised night work. So when you look at a traditional shift, be that from a utilities company or a construction company, they generally work over a set period during the day. Well, what gives companies a competitive advantage is the ability to work at night or to work later into the evening. And this is very fruitful for companies that can finish projects quicker. They then become more viable commercially on a tender document and when procuring for new work. But more importantly, they don't upset their neighbours as well. So they're actually sitting within the noise constraints of the local authority and within the law. They're able to operate, you know, vastly quieter. They're not polluting at the same time. And they're doing that in a really, really subdued way. And they're doing that, you know, without upsetting local residents or local businesses that might be working. And that in itself is a productivity benefit. It's a huge benefit, in fact, and it's a competitive advantage. So it's really, really important when going back to that kilowatt hour versus diesel argument. It doesn't need to be strong because when you monetize a feature of this product, it's essentially the difference between winning some contracts and winning no contracts. And if you want to look at it strictly from a monetization point of view, then this really does stand up for you and really opens your business to wider projects. Another point as well is enclosed construction sites. And we look at gas, water, electric and internet. You know, when you're working on these projects, you know, I'll give an example on enclosed construction sites. If you're working within a compound, if you're working in London, which is particularly urbanised and built up, or any major city, you know, you need to work there within that area. And obviously, I'm sorry, I'm just reading. And, you know, obviously you want to work within that combined zone. You want to do that in a really clean and manageable way. And also the other point is to consider the health and safety of your operators. You know, I come from an industry in waste management originally, and what's really, really important is the amount of material and exposure to gases and to various other materials that operators are exposed to. And the way that we protect operators and people on site is through filtration systems in our equipment. Really, you could argue electric equipment's come with filtration built in, and this really does provide really, really important benefits. So it's not just about monetizing it, to summarize, it's about the health benefits. It's about the benefit of working in really tight spaces. Next slide, please. So when you look at this, it's slightly different because it really is strictly about being indoor. Now, if you look at this slide, it pretty much stems the whole infrastructure in the UK. You know, if you operated a museum, you wanted to, or you needed to do some work within the museum, out of hours, you needed to provide some remediation works within there. You know, the last thing that the customer is going to want is emissions all over their artifacts and pictures. The last thing they're going to want is excessive noise. They almost want you to come in and disappear, you know, and once you've completed the work, leave. And this is where electric has a huge advantage over diesel. Factories, warehouses and airports also have their own constraints, and particularly underground basements and tunnels, where if you're working with diesel equipment and you're protruding fumes out on a continual basis, this is not great for your staff. It's not great for the health and well-being within that. And electric completely eliminates that. The same could also be said for shopping centres and also food processing plants. You wouldn't want to operate equipment ideally within close proximity of food processing or additive plants generally. So when we talk about the commercialisation, we talk about opening the door for companies to expand. You know, in a growing Britain, you know, when we're coming out of COVID, and also we're working towards zero carbon, we're saying to customers that what electric brings you is not necessarily a cheap kilowatt versus diesel argument. It brings you opportunity, it brings you safety, and it improves the health of everybody around you. But equally, you're also contributing to the better future for your children. So the ethical argument is certainly there as well. But when I say to customers, you know, what's the opportunity? You know, if we're going to do cigarette paper maths and say, well, it's just on kilowatt hours versus diesel, the monetary loss is so much more. So for the commercially minded of us, it's more to do with how much business you could win as opposed to what business you did. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. So now we move on to products. Now, JCB have been very, very pivotal in this space. We were the first people to produce an electric product in a 19C-1E mini excavator. It's on the top left hand, if some of you are not familiar with it. We do a range of products. We do the mini excavator. We also do charging units, which you can see in the second bubble there. We also do a fast charging unit, which I'm hoping will allay some customers' anxieties around charge times. We can literally charge one of our machines between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours from start to finish. So it really does work its way into a productive working cycle through the day. It allows customers to operate their business with autonomy without actually having that anxiety of whether or not we can charge our products. We also do our newly released, as of last week, is our new 1-ton dumper. Again, fantastic little product to move material around, particularly in utilities when you're excavating and you're digging small trenches and laying pipe work and carrying out a wide variety of work. You've got your mini excavator and you've also got your little dumper to take your material away. And they both work in tandem, very, very silently. One digs, the other one carries, and in the middle there you've got a consideration of a charging unit that will also charge that equipment fairly quickly for you as well. We also do a range of access equipment. So our access equipment is fully electric as well. You're able to obviously access any maintenance work within any infrastructure projects or any maintenance work within large industrial units, or whatever you wish to use it for, everything from house building to obviously various different types of projects. Equally under that, you've also got to the bottom left-hand side of our slide, we've got our telly truck. The telly truck is an incredibly famous product for JCB. It's one we're very proud of. It's a conventional, replaces a conventional masted forklift truck and gives you telescopic capability. It's fully electric. And it allows you to carry a wide range of materials in an industrial setting, be that palletized loads or bales, or whether you want to work in a timber environment and various construction settings as well. It's a really great product for a hire company. It's a product we've done incredibly well with over the year because of the uniqueness of it, and we'll certainly continue to do that. So we have our same technology available in the JCB telly truck as well. In the centre of the picture, for those smaller projects, and those tight spaces, we do something called a dumpster, which is a small electric push ride dumpster that you can use, which is electrically driven, and this also provides safe excavation of materials out of small spaces, particularly probably in areas where it's very sensitive, where you're digging and you need to just excavate small areas. This is a really, really good product for that. And lastly, and you see on the right hand side, we have what's called our 52560 telescopic handler, and this is our compact telescopic handler. You're starting to see them arrive in hire companies as well, so they are available for hire, and they're actually incredibly useful. Again, you can use it on a variety of construction projects. You can use it on a variety of other industrial projects as well, and that's a 2.5 ton lift capacity with a 6 meter reach. So again, giving you the same level of performance against a diesel comparator. Just out of interest on that, what's really, really important to understand is when we analyse data at JCB, we look at the shift times through our LiveLink telematics system. So we have a plethora of data available to us on utility customers, construction customers, and we really try to get a feel of what the duty cycles are and what the shift times are. So we're fairly comfortable that a lot of our products now will meet an exact shift time and a full day's work within that environment. And I would say to everybody on this group, if you are unsure, if you want to see where we've arrived in terms of technology, I'd like to extend this invite after this for you to come to JCB, see our products, experience them for yourself, operate them for yourself, and really see where we've come. And I think the key thing on this is that we can charge quicker. Our machines last a full day working cycle. You can charge them in 1 hour and 40 minutes to 2 hours, just over 2 hours. And you have various different options. You can even charge a machine up to 21 hours if you want. So it really is a whole host of options for you to move to electric. Next slide, please. So when we look at infrastructure, this is also a really, really key point of anxiety, really. If we go on to the next slide, please. This really gives us an understanding of generally how simple is it for you to take one of our machines from the factory, from domestic plug point to compound or construction site, and actually charge one of our machines and put it to work for you on the day. I want to labour on this slide a little bit more, really, just to touch on. You look at the left-hand side here, you can see 19C-1E. That's our mini excavator, for those of you that aren't familiar with the terminology. Now, if you use 110 volt, you can see there that on a standard charge, it can be anywhere up to 16 hours and 30 minutes. However, if you fit it with a fast charger, then what you can do is you can actually fully load that product from 0 to 100% in 2.5 hours. So you can see the difference. Now, in the early days, when we were first charging these products, we were still learning and launching technology. We didn't have fast charge capability, but now we do. So what we did is we made a real conscious effort over the last couple of years to provide this technology, because we knew that customers needed to charge their equipment quicker. What we didn't want was to rely on somebody plugging that machine in at 5:30 on the dot and then coming in at 8:30 in the morning and being able to start it again and then having a full charge available to them. So with fast charge capability, if you go down underneath where it says the 415 volt fast charge, which is the 5th column along, you can see how long on different machines it takes to charge our product from empty to full in terms of a completely full charge. So you can see there the amount of effort and technology that has gone into it and that is now available for customers to take that machine onto any site and actually charge from a 32 amp 3-phase socket, or using our fast charge capability, which is just to the left of that. So fast charging is available. It's applicable today. We can charge our products very, very quickly. We have a variety of sockets available that our machines can be charged from. So there's 2 in the UK. We've got 110 volt and 230 volt. There is a bit of a discussion around the health and safety elements of 230 volt on certain sites, and some customers prefer not to use 230, or within health and safety, they require 110 volt. So there are some limitations in terms of that infrastructure. However, it's my opinion, and that of many people in the industry, that really we should be moving to 230 volt anyway, and 230 volt is available on a lot of sites. It's worth noting as well that we do have a lot of power packs available. So let's assume for a moment that you're in a situation where you can't plug in. Well, we have a variety of power packs available, including the fast charge that I just spoke about, which is completely portable. It enables you to carry that product around on site. You can charge it remotely. You could be in the middle of a field or the middle of an industrial area, far away from any charge points, and you can get fast charge compatibility on your machine. When we look at generator compatibility, this has been some type of discussion around that. You know, we provide a range of generators at JCB, obviously, and you can charge your equipment from a generator. Now, some customers have said, well, that would suggest then it's not zero emissions. But what you can do is you can run your generator on an EN 940 certified HVO fuel, which will essentially reduce your particulate matter and NOx considerably and allow you to have a better closed loop working operation in terms of carbon reduction. So there are solutions out there where if you are operating from a generator and you decide that you don't want to use the power pack, you know, there's lots of different options for you. We do a variety of cables as well. So there's obviously some extension cables that are available for people that require that for longer. We have transformer compatibility now, so you can actually plug these cables into transformers. And as you can see broadly across the whole of our range, you can see the times that are available that you can charge, depending on what socket and depending on what charger. But I really do want to reiterate the point that our equipment is incredibly easy to charge now. It's incredibly productive, and we welcome the opportunity to test it on any application for a full day shift. I'll give you a really brief example of what a full day shift is. So most people assume a full day shift is 6 to 8 hours because that's generally a working day for most people. Unless you work, you know, at night times, it might differ slightly. But if you actually look at the time a machine operates, so if we remember that a machine actually operates, if we use the mini excavator example, it's going to work between 2 to 3 hours a day as a maximum. And our data shows us that considerably over a number of years. So excavators generally, particularly in the utilities, and there might be cases where they work longer, this is certainly not a generalization, but for the most part, equipment generally works between 2.5 to 3 hours. I think this is somehow where the anxiety kicks in, is people's understanding and realization of that. Now, before telematics, unless somebody was timing that, they probably wouldn't have known what the actual run time of their machine was. But the beauty of JCB LiveLink telematics, in conjunction with our infrastructure, in conjunction with our technology, we can give you a full day shift on all of our products. Another key point as well on our products is that we for the most part, excluding one product, use lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are incredibly versatile. And one of the plus points about a lithium-ion battery is that you can actually charge it opportune. It's called opportune charging. So it's very much like your iPhone. You can charge it halfway when it's full. So if you go from full to halfway and you think, you know what, feeling a bit anxious about this, I'm just going to give it another blast and charge it back up to full. You can opportune charge with lithium-ion batteries. So it's really, really useful. So I just wanted to take some anxiety away from that. Because we're very honest and open about what our customers are anxious about. It's our job to fix those anxieties. But I think we're in a fantastic place now, and we're very much ready to start the revolution on electric. Next slide, please. So really, I'd like to just talk a couple of points that somebody else mentioned, which was hydrogen. Well, the first point is that hydrogen in 2020, JCB delivered. I'm actually going to go back. I want to stay with electric. It's really important to sort of reiterate. Electric products for JCB are very much compact in nature. And the reason is that when we're operating with equipment that is high energy and high demand, which excavation and digging is, it's a huge amount, it's a barrel load of work. A product to stay electric, to exceed a 10 to 15 to 20 ton mark, there comes a point where commercially it becomes cost prohibitive. So when we're manufacturing products, we manufacture them always with the customer in mind, and we're always manufacturing products for the customer to really understand, or for the customer to get a product that has value, that is good value for money, that's constantly providing value, And sometimes with technology, it's very easy to go over that threshold and have a product that's not viable, and that's not the business we're in. So it's really, really important to understand that our electric proposition is based around compact products. And what we mean by compact is smaller products, which is some of the ones that you've seen in the presentation today. But that's not to say that there isn't more products coming, but it's certainly going to be very much around the compact side of purely because of being cost prohibitive, and also the technology really lends itself to that particular segment of products. On hydrogen, in 2020, JCB were the first manufacturer in the world to launch a 20-ton hydrogen excavator, which we were very, very proud of. It's a prototype. It's very, very important to actually to explain that it was a prototype. It was amazing the amount of calls that we got of people interested in that technology, and really what it was is us as a manufacturer to demonstrate to people our commitment to zero carbon and where we are going in the journey that we're going on. You may have seen recently in the last couple of weeks that JCB announced hydrogen technology in our internal combustion engines. So what JCB are actually doing now is developing our own internal combustion engine to receive hydrogen fuels. And the truth is we have done that. To what level our engineering, this is done by far more intelligent people in the business than me. But we have the technology available. We are working very, very hard on the technology, and there's a lot of considerations that we have to consider before launching a product. And I want to just touch on James's point in the last presentation. There's a lot of things to consider here, and that is safety. Safety is incredibly important. Productivity is incredibly important because we need to keep the country moving. We need our equipment to be viable. We need it to be productive. It needs to be able to deliver the duty cycles our customers have come to expect. It can't be cost prohibitive. You also need to have the infrastructure at the right time to meet the delivery of products. There needs to be a viable case on infrastructure and product at exactly the same time in order for that to happen. But in terms of hydrogen, as JCB, as a company and as a manufactured product, hydrogen is very much how we see the future. That is very much where our efforts are going. We believe it's the fastest route to zero emissions. It's most definitely hydrogen, and is a really, really important part of the mix. Rather than us say that we're going to have a hydrogen machine tomorrow, it would be wrong of me to do that. We have an engineering and an innovation department that will make that decision. But what I can say to you officially is that we're closer than any other manufacturer, and we've demonstrated that in the last 2 years. But we will only do something when we're ready to do it, and more importantly, when the market's ready to receive it. The other point I wanted to touch on finally was because I'm running out of time here, so I've only got 8 minutes, I think. So I'm going to make it very, very quick. Is hydro-treated vegetable oil. This is another part of the sustainable mix for us. So we don't just have electric products. We don't just have hydrogen in the future. But we also, our machines are also capable of receiving hydro-treated vegetable oil, which reduces, NOx emissions up to around 10%. You can reduce hydrocarbons, particulate mass. And it's a fantastic product. It really, really is. But it's really important that you buy the right fuel and that your fuel is certified if you're putting it in certain types of our machines. And it's also really important that you speak with your local JCB dealer to make sure that your engine and your model is compliant. But HVO is going to play a really useful part in future industry. And it really, really is a fantastic contribution to reducing the carbon footprint products. The other point, the last point, really, I wanted to discuss was a clean diesel technology. It's really, really important that we understand the place of clean diesel technology. And this is not just from us as a manufacturer, this is from every manufacturer. It still has a part to play. Now, I can say quite safely over the last 10 years, we've reduced emissions on diesel engines considerably. We design and develop and produce our own engines. We have reduced, particulate matter and NOx emissions considerably in the last 10 years. We've pushed the boundary since 1998 and even further to really bring down to stage 5 technology where we are. So what we're saying is we don't really want you to say, well, let's just move you to electric. It's fantastic. We want customers to do that, of course. But diesel has a huge part to play in the interim because we need to transition away from diesel. And it's important that while we do have diesel in our lives, it's the cleanest technology yet. And we can safely say that our Stage 5 engines are, we believe, the cleanest engines you can buy today. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Paul, I've sat there and waffled on, and I'm really sorry. Once I get going, I'm incredibly difficult to stop.
Welcome, David. That's fantastic.
Do you want to add anything, Paul?
Nothing really. I think we just field a couple of questions for 5 minutes, and then we can let the guys get on. No problem at all.
Yeah. So if there's any questions, I'll be please fire. If I can't answer them, I'll rely on Paul to.
Yeah. Thanks, David, for that. Again, a very inspiring presentation, really, on an exciting future for construction plant. And I think you're right. It's not necessarily going to be an option on whatever's cheapest. It's going to be, if you want to tender for a job, if you want to win the job, then you've got to use less polluting vehicles. And with a range of options for electric, but for heavier plant, hydrogen, or even or clean diesel. So I can see a whole range of options there, but all of them are resulting in less emissions. So yes, it is down to customers to a certain extent to be more discerning, but also I think possibly for customers to be a bit more helpful too. And if there are electric points available on a site, then make them available to contractors so they can charge their vehicles and not have to resort to diesel generation. Little things like that. It all adds up to a lot, really. But yeah, this is starting to evolve here, that the options for a greener construction plant are definitely here, with electric vehicles and then moving on to hydrogen ones. So absolutely fantastic. There's a question here about the supply chain. Did you see the one about the steel manufacturers?
Yeah, I can see that question. Yeah, how would JCB working with their supply chains, particularly steel suppliers, to address carbon reduction? So yeah, we have a supplier conduct strategy policy that's visible on our website. But I have been privy to recent conversations with our biggest rental company in the UK, of challenging us on what we're doing with our suppliers, not just on carbon reduction, but other things such as modern slavery. And so I was privy to a bit of our process on that. And yeah, so the audits are done on all our suppliers, and they're obviously scored and selected and negotiated upon. But steel, I suppose, yeah, it's very high in carbon in the production of steel, but we're certainly budgeting for the cost increases of a cleaner steel to be provided to us, which is obviously a concern for our customers. But also, one point I would say about that is recyclability, and not many products out there are fully recyclable, but steel is, and most of our product is steel. So there's the positive on steel suppliers, I suppose.
One thing I'd add to that, Paul, sorry to interject earlier. One thing I'd add to that is a really good point there, Paul, on steel. And the thing to consider as well with plastics, we are constantly in talks with some of our customers in the wider manufacturing community on recycling plastics. The key thing to remember about plastics when used in automotive is that they have to be, if we're going to recycle these materials, they have to be susceptible to UV light. They have to meet a certain grade of protection for the operator and for the machine, and various hazards within the machine. So that's a challenge in itself, because if it was a case of just recycling plastic materials, we would have already done it. So we're largely relying on the quality. So I just wanted to add that. But thanks, Paul. That's really useful.
Interesting point about steel, though. It's one of the most recyclable materials.
Yeah.
No, there's a question here about the difference between electric and diesel on breaker performance. Have you tried?
It's equally comparable.
Yeah.
We have the data. We can show.
It uses more power. So if you were braking with a mini digger, which we don't see very often, we can see all the telematics data on the complete fleet out there in UK. And there's not many applications where you'd be using a hammer, a pecker on a mini digger a whole day, but it certainly would use more energy. But this case on does electric equal diesel performance? It does. We're just literally changing the engine to a battery pack, and it produces the same energy. So there's no difference in performance. It's still driving the same hydraulic system on the machines.
Okay. There's a question on use of solar PV panels on machines. Is that something you've looked at for charging?
Want this, Paul, or I'm happy to answer that. We are using them, particularly in India at the moment. For any of you that aren't aware, we have several manufacturing plants around the world, and one particular project in India, which is a huge manufacturing facility for us. We are concentrating on solar power there, and we have a separate project working on that. There isn't any plans at the moment, as far as I'm aware, that we would attach solar panels to a machine at this precise moment, but never say never.
I don't think the technology in solar energy is good enough. I don't think it provides enough energy to recharge the machines in sufficient amount of time. You've seen in our data in the presentation that a 110 volt supply, I mean, take a minute, 16 hours to charge up on that basis. We do need to consider changing something about the environment that these machines are working in, bringing in a fast charger, having a 240 volt supply that you wouldn't normally have. So, but yeah, I don't think solar panels on top of machines would make much difference.
Okay. I don't think we have any more questions coming through. Anybody would like to ask something
from the panel? If there's a question from the panel, if you want to finish off, that's fine.
I think from just reinforcing the point you make about, for clean if we have clean construction projects, the requirement to use carbon efficient plant needs to be written in as part of the conditions of winning a contract. To really force this issue and make sure that it's not just based on lowest cost. Because I guess, I don't know, am I right in assuming that diesel might be lowest cost at the moment? But it's
if you're using a kilowatt versus kilowatt per hour, it's around 90 pence in the UK. If you're using that versus a litre of diesel, which is, let's assume it's £1.20, with the abolishment of red diesel in April next year, you're going to see a conservative £1.20 a litre is likely to be more, and that's only going to grow. So the business case for electric, if you're using an electric versus diesel comparative only, it's slightly cheaper to operate a diesel machine. If you're looking at the whole commercial proposition, it's far more expensive to operate a diesel machine when you consider those other factors. One thing I would say, and just to reiterate, we on behalf of myself and Paul, we invite you guys to JCB to come and experience it yourself. We can arrange demonstrations as well for everybody in this group. We're very proud of what we've done, very proud of what we've achieved. And it may just be that it isn't anxiety, it's just an understanding of how stuff works. We've got a great team here that can help you do that. If you want to make the transition, we welcome you to either come here or we'll come to you and we'll demonstrate exactly what this product does.
Yeah, and I can tell you as someone that was lucky enough to go and visit your works 2 years ago, it is a thoroughly fascinating experience to see the whole process. And it certainly opened my eyes to modern manufacturing techniques and technology. It's a very exciting factory to go around.
Thank you very much, everybody.
So I think